Hi, we're here with Sophie Jordan. Welcome, Sophie.
Hi.
We wanted to talk about your book that comes out on Tuesday. Today, actually, by the time this airs.
Happy release day to me.
Yeah, happy release. Congratulations.
I'm congratulating myself. Thank you.
You should.
No.
Lessons from a Scandalous Bride. You want to tell us about that?
Sure. Lessons from a Scandalous Bride is part of my Forgotten Princess series. But of course it's standalone, even though, we say it's a series. But my idea for the series is that there's a father who is sort of a slumlord. I coined him the king of the London underworld, and he has these daughters. So he's very, that he wants to, be titled and have the position he doesn't. Because although he's very, very wealthy, he lacks title and position in society. So he's going to use what he does have, which is a lot of money, and try to buy them husbands. So they're, and he's sort of an unsavory character, and of course his daughters are all illegitimate, and so that's how I kind of got the idea for the series. So Cleo is one of these daughters who, Daddy wants this for me, what are you going to do? I don't know. She has her own ideas of what she wants, and they, her journeys, each sister, each daughter, their journeys are very different, so you'll have to read Cleo's story to find out.
Okay, well, we're looking forward to that.
Thanks.
And then you also have a Harper Teen book, Hidden, which is the third in the Firelight trilogy. Comes out in September.
Yes.
This was exciting news about that. You want to tell us about Hidden first?
I'll tell you about, Hidden is the third book in the Firelight trilogy, so it's a little bittersweet that it's over. So, Firelight is the story of a girl named Jacinda who descends from dragons. So it's really a shape-shifting story, but it's grounded in our world. So I don't want people, when they hear dragons, they're like, oh, it's fantasy.
Right.
No, because it's our world. So they walk among us, they can blend in, and they really are trying to hide what they are, to avoid capture. And because, of course, there's, hunters out there who know of their existence and would like to capture them. And so there's a lot of romance in it, of course, because that's what I do. So there's steaminess, there's a boy, there's a human hunter boy, and then a boy like her. They're actually called the Draki. And, both are very compelling choices and their own heroes, so it makes it hard for her. So lots of action, lots of danger. So the third book, Hidden, comes out in September, as we said. And my exciting news was this week I met with the producers who've optioned Firelight, and we had a wonderful talk and a wonderful visit about what's going on with everybody wants to know what's happening. Is there going to be a movie? Is there going to be a movie? And according to Mandalay, yes. So that's my exciting news. So there is already a script written, and it's they're slating it for production for 2013, which, in our world, that'll be here before we know it, in the book industry. So they've done some exciting things. As I said, I've read the script. They're in talks with studios right now. And what else? They've hired an artist that created some amazing sketch work of what the Draki actually look like. So that's really exciting because, I wrote the book, but it's not illustrated.
Right.
So there's no visual pictures, so some visualization for them, and coming up with
Did you see those and go, oh my gosh, that's it?
I know, just think sensual, that's it,
That's easy.
Sensual. Yeah, right. I think sensual, and everyone, if there's ever been any resistance people might have to reading it, they're like, they hear dragon, and they're like, oh, it's fantasy. I'm not a fantasy reader. It's not Aragon. It's not high fantasy. It's, just because it is grounded in the now, I'm like, they're, think human size, they're not big giant dinosaur sized creatures that they hop on and ride on. So, just they are, kind of sensual, sexy looking, unrecognizable though when they're a Jackie. You can't tell, them from their human shape. So, I think any other exciting. That's my exciting news for the week.
Okay, so in a perfect world, who would you like to see play your?
I know, people ask that. I almost think it has to be an unknown for Jacinda's this very fiery, haha, pun, yes, because she breathes fire. She's the last of her kind, the Draki that breathes fire. And she embodies that almost. She has this flaming red hair, which, they can do hair color. They can play with any actress. She doesn't have to be a redhead. So, obviously someone young. I have, fantasies I've told them for some of the adults in the cast. I would love, I envision her mother as someone like Mila Jovovich. Oh, yeah. And when they even asked, who do you see as Jacinda? I said, a young Mila Jovovich. She just has that exotic, I've loved her in those Resident Evil movies. She's just that kind of kick-butt heroine. I could see, you know, that's kind of what I envisioned as a young Jacinda and her mother as well. And boys, boy, they just better be sexy. I'm sure they will.
Yeah.
I think my girl readers expect it.
No ugly boys, because that would be...
It's the fantasy.
Wrong.
It's the fantasy of
right.
romance, you know, and I'm sure there's a lot of teen heartthrobs out there. And fortunately, a lot of them can act, too.
Maybe you could get Justin Bieber.
I know.
Probably not the right
word.
I
know. I've joked. I'm a fan of the MTV. I think the MTV show Teen Wolf. They have some great casting.
I've heard that that's a great
Incredible
show.
casting. They're all very, and it's kind of a dark paranormal series. So I love to watch them because they all have great intensity and they stare through the camera. I want, someone that has that, I'm sure, that kind of power and magnetism. Especially, there's the two hero interests. There's the human boy, but he's a hunter and he's strong, and there's something a little special about him too. And there's Cassian, who is a Jackie, and he's an onyx Jackie. When he shifts, it's a very charcoal looking, and he's very strong, and he's on the large size. That type of Jackie. They all have talents. She's a fire breather. He's an onyx. When the onyx shift, they're the biggest of all the Jackies. So, kind of the foot soldiers of the species in a way. So,
sounds fascinating.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to that.
I'm excited.
And so, so is there anything you'd like to add? Or?
I'll throw a little teaser in about the Forgotten Princess series, because I've prefaced just how it's inspired by the dad is this king of the London underworld. It actually, the inspiration for the whole series idea came from a Chinese folktale called The Beggar Princess.
Oh, cool.
The father was the beggar king. It's the same setup. He wanted his daughter to marry up, so he used his wealth to buy her a husband. She was very excited the night of the wedding, very starry-eyed. This, prince, impoverished, but a prince, is marrying me. And she's swept up in the romance of it, and on the wedding night, he throws her overboard, their wedding barge. He murders her on the night, and of course she doesn't die, and she washes ashore, and then at the end of the folk tale they reconcile. And I thought, that's just not how a romance should end. You don't reconcile with the husband who tried to murder you on your wedding night. So
yeah, that's bad.
But it is bad.
That's a bad message to send to readers.
It is,
too.
and I was reading this folk tale to my 6-year-old daughter, this little fairy tale, and I had to stop at the end of it and say, that's not what we do. We don't forget men. We don't forgive the men who try to murder us. So, but it stuck with me, the image of this bride being thrown overboard on her wedding night, and how she changes, like from childhood to her childhood is gone in that instance, and she's a new person. And that will be the last story in my Forgotten Princess story. It's actually that retelling. His youngest daughter will marry a duke, and on the wedding night he is going to smother her with a pillow and throw her over the wedding barge. And that's the opening of the last book of the Forgotten Princess series. The book that's to follow, Lessons from a Scandalous Bride. Okay.
And when does that come?
That'll be out 2013.
Great. That sounds really good.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.